The PS2 had some of the most iconic survival horror games of all time. Silent Hill 2 and 3, a handful of Resident Evil games, Siren, Rule of Rose, Haunting Ground, and of course, Fatal Frame. Fatal Frame Maiden of Blackwater is the 5th mainline game, and with the remaster, it's no longer stuck on the Wii U. But just like the rest of the series, it's actually not survival horror. But is it scary? And is it fun? Let's find out.
I thought that I'd be scared of death.
When the game originally released in 2014, many of the series fans weren't able to play it because it was exclusive to the Wii U, a console about as popular as herpes. Well, you can stay away from that cold sore since the game has been remastered and re-released for PC and all last-gen and current-gen consoles. The Fatal Frame series came out over 20 years ago and was heavily influenced by Japanese horror movies like Ringu and The Grudge. Besides the undeniably Japanese tone, the combat set these games apart. Unlike the passive hide-and-seek style games like Clock Tower or the expanding arsenal of firearms in Resident Evil, Fatal Frame used the camera Obscura. Taking pictures of ghostly apparitions was the only way to fight them. And through this in-your-face approach to horror, the franchise was born. So, does the formula hold up over 2 decades later? And does this game deserve a second life? Maiden of Blackwater is set in the fictional mountain known as Mount Hikami, and deals with heavy themes such as suicide and ritual sacrifice. The horror atmosphere is dripping with intrigue as the story follows 3 different protagonists who investigate the supernatural happenings involving death of the shrine maidens at Hikami Mountain. The narrative is decent, but where Maiden of Blackwater shines is in its presentation of the story. It opens with you controlling a woman in a subterranean lake, surrounded by disturbingly hot ghosts. Instead of following her story, we're quickly treated to her demise and told that our story will take place where these events unfolded. Just a solid gut punch to hook you in immediately. The story remains fairly compelling throughout. While it does start to repeat itself far too many times and drags a bit towards the end, it still manages to get you fairly invested in the characters. You'll switch between Yuri, Ren, and Miyu. Their paths will crisscross throughout as they're given reasons to visit and revisit again the spooky locations. The story also brings back Miku, the main character from the first Fatal Frame game, in an interesting way that's pretty satisfying. I won't go into too much detail here to avoid spoilers, but it's a nice touch to bring the series back to its beginnings and continue the story of the character that started it all. I also appreciated the inclusion of more modern elements, like mental health, into an otherwise fairly typical Fatal Frame type story. A story and tone that is uniquely Japanese, with ancient curses and vengeful ghosts. There's a very different feeling to Japanese horror stories. I got serious Siren vibes when I was playing, mostly in the structure and overall tone. Both are broken up by self-contained chapters with locations you'll revisit over and over, multiple protagonists that you'll change between, and the slow and methodical gameplay that focuses heavily on sight and perspective. There's a melancholy undercurrent running under everything. This isn't necessarily a scary game, although there are scary moments. It's almost like attending a funeral and then staying after everyone leaves. It's more dour and sad than anything else. It gets under your skin. Most of the ghosts you see only exist for brief glimpses. They're not even aware of you. It's like a recording of a trauma from their lives playing on repeat. Others will attack you, but you get the sense that their rage is born from a deeper pain, rather than just from them being evil. The game is divided into 14 chapters called drops. Each drop focuses on 1 or 2 areas that you'll revisit several times throughout the game. These areas are fairly linear with limited ability to explore. If you try to wander off the correct path, you'll get turned around. And if you need to know where to go, you can hold the right trigger to see a spirit that will guide you. You'll find notes to fill in the lore and can pick up items like healing or film. The camera Obscura is the main hook in what sets it apart from other horror games. You'll use the camera to capture roaming spirits, complete some puzzles, and for combat. This is your sole weapon against the malevolent forces you'll encounter. You can press a button to bring it up, switching your perspective from third to first person. You aim with a combination of the right stick and motion controls. Unlike other horror games where you can run away, where you never actually have to confront the horrors out to get you, in Fatal Frame you have to face your attacker. There's literally no looking away. There's a long, superstitious tradition spanning a number of cultures surrounding how cameras capture more than just your physical self. They capture the soul. And there's certainly something to it. Have you ever seen those old-timey photos where no one smiles? Talk about getting under your skin. But even in more recent pictures, there's something about seeing that moment in time frozen forever. The world has changed, but the photo never will. And that's not even mentioning traditions like death photos. Ugh. Combat is all about positioning and timing. These circles on the entities must be in the frame to damage them. Spirit fragments will occasionally break off, and if you get 5 of them in the frame, you'll have the chance to land a critical shot. If you wait until the very last moment as a ghost is attacking you, you'll get a fatal frame, which not only deals much higher damage, but will also knock them back. As you successfully damage a ghost, you'll acquire spirit energy, which powers your special lenses. After defeating an enemy, you'll have a small window to go in for a fatal glance. If successful, you'll see how they died and what led them to become a ghost. This extra backstory for every single type of ghost in the game, which there are a ton by the way, is a great way to enhance immersion and expand the fiction of the world. You can collect a handful of special lenses that use spirit energy. These lenses add buffs or perks to your attacks, like twice as strong attack or one that drains the spirit's health to increase yours, the ability to freeze or slow them down, and more. After using these lenses, your spirit energy will drain, requiring you to gather more before you can use it again. So, using these lenses at the right moment is key. You'll also have a number of different film types that you can pick up. These affect both the power of your attacks, but also how quickly you can reload the film for the next attack. The higher the number, the more powerful they are. There are a couple of subtle features that build tension. Like whenever you go to pick up items, you'll hold the trigger through this lengthy animation that opens you up to an attack by a ghost hand that not only scares the crap out of you, but will also damage you if you don't pull your hand away quickly enough. Also, when opening doors, you get these slow, suspenseful animations that are reminiscent of old RE titles. Never knowing when you'll be grabbed when simply trying to pick up items, or what might be behind a door as you're opening, are masterfully executed here, in ways that never let you lower your guard. There are specific moments sprinkled throughout the campaign where you run into the primary Blackwater Maiden herself, who can't be hurt by your camera. She looks cool as hell, but these brief encounters pretty much just have you running away, and if she touches you, you die. Aside from that, the setting and atmosphere do all the heavy lifting here to maintain your interest. As far as pacing, the way the story starts to retread so much towards the end and keeps forcing you to retrace the same routes through the same areas gets a little tiresome. But this is par for the course for Fatal Frame. It's never enough to completely lose interest, but it feels like they could have cut down the length of the game and the story to be a tighter narrative and still accomplished exactly what they wanted to say. At the end of each drop, you'll receive a score based on your performance. You can use these points for items, upgrades, and costumes. Now I love me some costumes. They range from swimsuits to goth outfits and more. Unfortunately, some of the costumes from the original were removed, including the Samus and Zelda outfits for obvious reasons. Upgrading your camera improves your combat abilities, like acquiring more spirit power from each attack, faster film loading, or more powerful attacks. You can also upgrade each individual lens to increase the buffs they provide. Overall, it's a relatively simple upgrade system, but you'll feel the difference, even if only subtly. As for the controls, it's an interesting but mixed bag for the remastered version. The original had a very specific control scheme, taking advantage of the Wii U gamepad to act as the camera Obscura. The translation to other controller types works pretty well, if a bit unwieldy at times, particularly when taking the motion controls into account. Thankfully, you can turn that off if it really doesn't click with you. However, the character movement is still painfully slow and incredibly clunky in tighter interior areas. I played this game on my PS5, which runs in native 4K resolution, has slightly better water effects and shadows, but otherwise looks shockingly similar to the original Wii U version. That's not to discredit the visuals. If anything, it's a credit to the art design, which is breathtakingly gorgeous. From the beautiful and haunting traditional Japanese landscapes, forests, and buildings, to the incredibly detailed character, enemy, and costume designs that fill the world. Some visuals do show their age, with a relative lack of polygons and a few low-res textures here and there, but the game looks and plays better than ever. The audio design also deserves a mention here. It's one of the most oppressive and horrifying soundscapes of any modern game, with constant mixes of audio feedback, strong wind sounds, loud stingers, sounds of static, tormented screams and moans, and a whole host of other perfectly placed effects. There isn't much in the way of music, which I think was a good choice. Being surrounded by the environmental audio alone feels lonely and sullen. The sound design is so carefully crafted and intense that it elevates the overall experience. As I mentioned at the start, this isn't a survival horror game. That's not a bad or good thing, it's just what it is. Survival horror evolved from old adventure games, where inventory management, puzzles, and difficult combat work together to create fear and tension. The risk-reward decision-making is central to the experience and to your survival. In Maiden of Blackwater, while the inventory is limited, there's no management. You never have to decide what to take with you and what to leave behind. You simply pick up everything you find until your inventory is full. And since your inventory doesn't carry over between drops, you don't have to tightly ration it, other than for a score. The game clocks in at one of the longest in the series, at around 12 to 15 hours for a playthrough, depending on how much note reading and exploring you do. While it does become a bit of a slog towards the end, and the pacing could have used a little tightening up overall, I was mostly hooked throughout. There are a handful of different endings, and after finishing the story for the first time, you'll unlock new costumes, items, and bonus chapters. These are just a few short missions where you play as Ayane from the Dead or Alive series, changing up the gameplay, focusing on stealth, and adding another hour or two of gameplay. I always appreciate rewards like this. There isn't exactly a New Game Plus mode, but you can replay any of the drops you've already completed with all of your upgrades and of course the costumes you've acquired. To complete the game 100%, you'll need to score S+ on all drops. This means getting as many critical shots as possible, getting the fatal glance on all spirits you defeat, use as few items as possible, etc. And you'll need to complete all of the drops on Nightmare difficulty, which is certainly easier after playing the drops a few times. Fatal Frame Maiden of Blackwater is a solid remaster to a pretty unique horror experience. The design is a throwback to the horror games from the PS2 generation, which will either be a plus or a minus depending on your tastes. I loved the looming horror atmosphere and the unique gameplay hook with its motion-controlled first-person camera. If you're open to a slower and more melancholy horror experience that isn't like anything else, I recommend you check out Fatal Frame Maiden of Blackwater. Alright, well there's Fatal Frame Maiden of Blackwater. You've heard my take and I'd love to hear yours as well. Also, what's your favorite horror game from the PS2 era? Let's talk about it in the comments down below. If you liked the video, hit like and subscribe. And if you want another great horror game, check out my video right here. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.